You're a logical guest on the show because you have been a prized off-season acquisition by the Canucks, and you've brought to them exactly what they expected you to bring. This is me trying to loosen you up now, Manny, after a tough night.
He was worried about this, by the way. He was going to pass it off on me.
Is the best part, before we get to PJ Stock, who's standing by in Toronto to ask you a question, is the best part of tonight the fact that you're playing again tomorrow night and you got a chance to make it right away?
Yeah, we discussed it after the game. Obviously not the result we wanted. More importantly, not the effort we wanted. Yeah. We just didn't play like ourselves. And the best part, like you said, we don't have a chance to think about it. We come ready to play tomorrow, and there's obviously two ways to handle this. We can go into a little bit of a shell and feel sorry for ourselves, or get right back to business. But I know we'll respond the right way tomorrow.
PJ Stock counts you as one of his best friends from his playing days. Do you feel the same, or is he creeping on you?
I'll say he's my friend on air right now, but we'll talk afterwards.
Well, PJ standing by in Toronto with a question.
Mr. Malhotra, if you had to pick a player from your career whom you'd like to thank for taking time to work with you, your most influential role model, mentor, Miyagi-type life coach, you would pick?
You'd be at the top of the list. It's either you or Adam Graves.
Graves!
Gravy took care of us both, I think, when our first year there. So
yeah, he's referring to your time together in New York, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my first year, Stalker was there, Adam Graves was there, and he really genuine guys, you know, but really took care of us and kind of kept me away from Stalker at the right moments.
Hey, PJ, thanks for sticking around to ask that question.
Done.
I honestly thought it'd be better than that, but okay, go ahead.
He's going to co-host.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not done. Manny, they put you beside Gretzky in a dressing room. What's the one thing you learned from sitting beside Wayne in your first couple of years?
There's a lot of stuff. I think the biggest thing for me, and a lot of people ask me what's the most memorable story about him, was my first game sitting beside him. He asked me, are you nervous, kid? And I obviously said, yeah. And he said, so am I. So I took a second to think about it, and thought, if the greatest player of all time in the National Hockey League's nervous, in his 20th season, his first game of the year, it's all right for me to be nervous as long as it was focused energy. So he really took time to always make sure I was comfortable and I understood what was going on in the room, and just a classy individual.
That it, PJ?
I'm done. I got to get last call. Okay. Sorry, Manny. Last call on the East Coast.
Rudy's waiting for you. You better rush.
All right, take care, Stalker.
Let me follow up on that, though. You played as a young player in the National Hockey League, and we all know that it's a tough adjustment you've gone through, especially in a big market like New York. What did you learn out of those first couple of years? And, second year, maybe not as much success. What do you take out of that now as a 12-year veteran that you learned early on in your career from that?
I think the upside to that, if you can call it one, is the fact I learned to go through a lot at a young age, and everybody around me continued to tell me to focus and continue to be a better player. As you said, in my second year, didn't receive a lot of ice time, didn't play very much, and there's so many questions that go through your head as a player. Why am I not playing? What should I be doing? What am I doing wrong? And my biggest focus coming to the rink every day was making sure I improved my game, did whatever the coaches asked of me, all the bag skating, all the extra work with the assistant coaches. I made sure I was sharp and executed in practice, try to improve my game as opposed to sulking and moping about not playing.
On the flip side of that, though, here 12 years later, you had a career high last year in goals and a career high the year before in points. Is it just the maturity that you've had and the right fix? Like, obviously you feel like Vancouver was a nice fit as well. Yeah,
everything seems to be coming together right now for me, in terms of all the things I've learned over my career are obviously coming together. The confidence factor is a big thing. As you become more and more of a veteran, just confidence out on the ice in your ability, knowing what's expected of you, knowing your role on the ice helps out a lot.
Manny, the Rangers drafted you 7th overall in 1998, and of course the expectation for any player taken in, say, the first 10 or 12 picks in the first round is they're going to be a goal scorer, and it hasn't turned out that way for you. So here's a BlackBerry, or I think it's Twitter, from Pam in Canmore. When did you realize that you would have to start doing other things to stay in the game?
I guess my first couple years, I had my first year especially, Mac T was one of our assistants, and he kind of taught me the ropes of taking face-offs and being a good defensive player. but I don't think it really hit home until I got to Columbus. And, you know, from that point, I was picked up on waivers by Columbus from Dallas. And, you know, it was that point that I was given that checking mentality role. And they said, you know, this is where you're going to carve your niche. This is where you're going to be a player in this league. So I really started to hone my skills and try to improve in that aspect of my game.
Okay, but here's a piece of video of a spectacular goal you scored for Columbus in 04. And the question is, if you can score one like this, why can't you get 30 a year?
That was, yeah, that was definitely a fun one. I don't know. I guess it's, you know, you always try to set yourself up and be in the right place at the right time. And I think last year and more so this year, you look at the depth that we have in the lineup, and there's an opportunity to be offensive every night. So, you know, definitely looking for bigger and better things this year.
Well, you said something that really strikes to me, the maturity you have as an older player and understanding going through the highs and lows. Do you really feel, though, now that you look at successful teams, they have players like you that fill a specific role? Do you feel really comfortable in the one that you're now put in here?
Yeah, I had great talks with both AV and Mike prior to signing here, and they really outlined the role that they had for me, and it really you know, is exactly what I was looking for. And so just the way I've been used out there, being put on for certain face-offs, being out on penalty kill, you know, being out in key moments of the game, that's something that you strive for as a player, and I've really enjoyed the role so far.
Face-off's probably the best part of your game, and I think we were talking earlier today. You made the point that this is really what's kept you in the league for, you know, a dozen years. Here you are working on it this morning. You led the league last year at about 65%. You're over 60% this year, I think. It wasn't great tonight, I know, but we'll discard that as we talk about your work in the circle. What about the art of the draw for you? What makes it work?
I think the basics of it are just speed and strength, and a lot of hand-eye coordination. So those are the basics I got from Mac T. And then the biggest thing he was saying was do whatever works for you, be comfortable in what you're doing. And over the years, just developed more and more things that have worked for me. And you know, as years go on, you just focus on you know, just minor aspects of taking draws, and where stick positioning is, where I am on the ice, who am I going against. All those things come into play.
What strikes me there is just how down low you are and how low your hand is down on your stick. If we had taken Manny Malhotra, the rookie in New York, one of your first face-offs, how different would it look than what you look like there?
It would have been night and day. Yeah, it just over the years, I think once I got to the NHL, you realize how strong
the guys are.
Yeah. You know, you're playing with men now. They're men's strength, so it's not a matter of you know, trying to dipsy doodle your way into the circle and trying to quick a puck out of there. It's you better get ready.
Can't do anything cute at all.
No, there's no cutesy draws out there. It's you get muscled out if you try to play that way.
Tim, Malhotra versus Danico. I just want to warn our producers so we can get the tape ready, but we'll go to the archives for this. This got a lot of play. Here you are in your 20, I think, in the year 2000-2001 season, fighting a grizzled veteran, Ken Danico, who was 35 then. You dropped him with a shot to the button. What did that do for your confidence? Or did it frighten you because you were playing him the next game and he had his eye out for you?
Yeah, it was that was one of those situations. Something had happened to Eric Lacroix the night before, and he ended up sticking up for himself. So it was at the back of my mind, and something happened right off the face-off there to him again. So I had to stand up for him at that point. But right after the game, the reporters were saying, you know, how you feeling going into the next game? You're going into New Jersey, playing against those guys. So I was ready for what may have come, but sure enough, Sandy McCarthy was on my line the next game going into New Jersey.
Protect you a little bit.
I felt a bit more confident.
Well, you think about that, new teammates and sticking up for teammates. How difficult is it coming in as an older guy to a room that is a fairly experienced room here in Vancouver too? How do you wade into that to find a way of where you fit, both, you know, in the pecking order and in the room, and trying to relate to guys? How's that been?
I think one thing that made it really easy for me this year was we summer in Victoria, and we got here in early August to try to settle in. My wife was pregnant, so we wanted to get situated, just be comfortable with our surroundings, and slowly more and more guys started to trickle in. So I got to know guys individually before kind of everybody got to camp, and you know, you're trying to meet guys all at the same time. So I think that helped out a lot. I just kind of felt more comfortable around the guys once more and more guys, and once we got down to our final room, I just felt more confident with the guys in there. And as I was saying before, when you as you become more and more veteran player, you know, you don't hesitate to say what you need to say, or I guess that's kind of always been the way I've been, is you know, you kind of know when you're supposed to be quiet and when it's time to say something.
Step up and not.
All right, well, listen, let's step off the ice for a second and get to life. Who is the better athlete, you or your wife, Joanne, who played varsity soccer at the University of Victoria and comes from a family of serious athletes, one of whom has twice been named the NBA's MVP?
She's a pretty incredible athlete herself, so we'll argue about this at home tonight. But she had an incredible soccer career at UVic, played for Canada for a little bit. But I'll say she is right now, just so I can go home and
wise
sleep peacefully.
choice.
Yeah.
Here's a graphic question from Brad in Mississauga. Do we have it, Tim? It's coming, I'm told, and it has to do with your relationship with your brother-in-law. So or brothers-in-law. Which of your brothers-in-law do you think you'd have a better chance of beating? Martin Nash in soccer, who plays for the Whitecaps, or Steve Nash, who is a pretty decent basketball player? That's from Brad in Mississauga, by the way.
I think I could out-muscle Steve under the boards. If I let him get to his shooting game, I think he'd take me.
Don't allow him.
Yeah, and then Martin's an incredible soccer player, so I just have to be dirty and out-tackle him.
You ever played one-on-one with Steve?
No, we haven't. A lot of people ask me that, but obviously our schedule's at the same time. He's playing 82, we're playing 82, and in the summertime, he's such a busy guy. Doing appearances and you know, his charity events, so he's quite busy in the summer too. So we haven't had a chance to play one-on-one.
Has he ever skated with you?
Never skated. The only sport we've played together is soccer.
Oh, okay.
So during his charity classic a few years ago in Vancouver, he always likes to get a soccer game with all his buddies. So we played soccer together. But other than that, no hockey, no basketball.
You talked about what you learned from sitting next to Wayne Gretzky and you know, listening to his experiences. Do you get anything out of a different game, obviously, but Steve being, you know, excelling in his sport, do you get anything from just talking about maybe different aspects that aren't hockey related, but more just leadership and going on?
Yeah, I think you know, if you watch Steve play the game, you're mesmerized by how intense he is, and he's such a go kind of guy. And he is a naturally gifted athlete. You know, he's an incredible soccer player. They played hockey growing up. Obviously, plays basketball pretty well. But I don't think people know how much work he puts into his craft. And he's extremely strict on himself with his diet and his training regiment, and the hours he puts in just shooting balls, shooting free throws. That's one thing that impresses me as being an athlete, is the amount of hours he puts into his trade and the work ethic he has. It's no fluke.
Doesn't come by chance.
It's no fluke that he was a two-time MVP.
Yeah.
I remember being in the San Jose room last year, and I was talking to you about an interview we were going to do that night or whatever, and someone yelled out, "Ask him when's the last time he ate a burger." And that had to do with the fact that your brother-in-law, Steve Nash, had got you on a vegan diet.
Yeah.
How did that work out for you?
It lasted a good month or so. And it started to drive me nuts after a while. My wife was irate, just the amount of food prep we had to do, and it just
in other words, she couldn't stand you.
She couldn't stand me. She couldn't stand the diet. So
that'll turn it around quickly.
Yeah. I took a few things that I liked out of the diet, but the night I got home after doing that interview, she had calls and text messages from her friends asking me if I was a vegan, and she said, "Who are you telling you're a vegan the night after you have steak for dinner?" So she caught me in that one.
Oh, I exposed it then. I feel proud of myself. You started the lockout year, 04-05, playing in Slovenia, where, you know, might not be the highest caliber hockey there, but you cashed in a big way, because that's where you met your wife, Joanne. How did that happen?
Long story. I'll try to make it short. I went over to Slovenia to play, and Matt Pettinger, who played here last year, he and his fiance were over there, and they grew up with my wife in Victoria as best friends. So my wife was traveling Europe at the time, and so they said, "Come on over and visit us in Slovenia." She hopped on a train, and we met there, and we just stayed friends for a few years. And a couple years ago at Matt's wedding, we started to date. So it's a lot of that was the good thing that came out of the lockout for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about the adjustments of being, you know, a father, or if you change as a player when you're young, all you worry about is playing hockey. How about having a real life now, and how much that changes things?
Yeah, it definitely puts things into perspective for me. And like you said, when you're a young guy, your whole life revolves around hockey. It's all you're thinking about. You go home at night, and there's really nothing to take your mind off it. Whereas now, as soon as I walk in the door, the hockey hat goes off, and I'm strictly daddy, and whatever the kids want, that's what they get. But it definitely puts things into perspective for me that no matter what, there's somebody happy to see me at home. And I was saying last year that the NHL is really a fantasy life for us. We get to play a game that we grew up playing. It's our job now. But reality hits when you go home and you're changing dirty diapers and you're up in the middle of the night.
You're tired.
Kids, you're tired, no sleep. But so it's definitely an incredible experience for me.
We should point out that you and Joanna have 2 boys. Caleb was 2, and Isaiah was born at the end of September.
Yep.
And I'm guessing with the athletic bloodlines, the 2 of you, they're going to have their choice of sports. Here's a graphic question from Kyle in Edson. It has to do with education. With both parents holding doctorate degrees, how do they feel about your decision to become a professional athlete? I'm going to rephrase that because your parents imparted on you the value of good education, but sadly, Manny, you've elected to become a millionaire athlete. Where did it all go wrong?
I'm the black sheep in the family.
Yeah.
I'm the only one not to go to university, so they're a little bit disappointed in that. And my mother's always said that I have to go back at some point and be educated, but I'll put that on hold for now and try to make a career as long as I can of this.
Well, you just played the defending Stanley Cup champs tonight. Obviously, the game didn't go the way you want, but when you look at that and you look at the longevity you've had in your career, how important is it to try to win a Stanley Cup, and how close do you think that you are? You had a good team in San Jose playing there, but how close do you feel you can be?
I really like the team we have. The depth is, I think, one of the key reasons we've had success early on. But I think Mike Gillis said it best at the beginning of the year. A lot of things have to fall in place. You have to be lucky at the right time. Every team goes through injuries. Hopefully that doesn't bite us too bad. And you just have to get hot at the right time. So, but as far as our locker room, I'm really happy with the personnel that we have.
Here's a question for you from Garrett in Langley. And here it is. Being that you are the only current NHL player of Pakistani descent, do you see yourself as a role model? Your father, Shadi's Pakistani, right?
Yes.
From Lahore?
Born in Lahore.
And your mother, Lise, is French-Canadian.
Yes.
But is it significant to you that you are the only player? In fact, when you broke in, you were second behind Robin Bawa, who was the first, but now the only player of East Indian descent in the league.
I guess growing up in Toronto, you never really look at yourself as colors and races, and it's such a melting pot, culturally speaking, that I never really thought of myself as being an Indian kid playing hockey. Right. It wasn't until I got to New York and I saw more and more publications out and stuff, and I think obviously the biggest South Asian population being here in Vancouver, of the cities that I've played in. There's been a lot of magazine requests and articles and stories, so it is a cool, I think a cool thing when kids come up and say, I'm really happy that you're playing. I'm watching hockey because of you, but by no means do I see myself as a role model in that sense. Not in terms of the way Willie O'Ree did it or Robin Bawa did it.
Well, listen, you're well equipped to be a role model, not just for your heritage, but in many other areas as well. Manny, I want to thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Great of
Thanks
you to come on, as we often say, under less than ideal circumstances.